My obligatory spiral dynamics video. Spiral dynamics theory as one of the most sophisticated layers of the appearance. Hello, my name is Andre and I'm a psychotherapist operating out of Copenhagen, Denmark, and I moonlight as a spiritual teacher. This YouTube channel operates from the main insight that appearance is not the same as essence. When we make a clear demarcation line between everything that belongs to the appearance, which includes the physical appearance, feelings, thoughts, and even the entire personality, and continue to disidentify ourselves from all of this, it becomes possible to move one's core identification from the appearance and into the essence, from the objective to the subjective. In today's video, we will spend some time here talking about one of the most sophisticated layers of the appearance by using the theory of spiral dynamics consciousness development. But first, a little background. Section 1, background of the spiral dynamics theory. Spiral dynamics theory was developed by the psychology professor called Claire Graves, and later expanded by Don Beck and Christopher Cohen. Graves, who taught in psychology, was after a seminar which was about psychological theory, asked by one of his students, "So which one of these theories is the right one?" Graves, who operate from one of the last layers of the appearance, said that they are all true to some extent. And thereafter, Graves started to develop a vertical spiral scale of consciousness in such a way that he could place all the different theories on the scale. Graves operated from the assumption that all perspectives or theories contains a part of the truth. From the essence layer, you see through this assumption of relative truth. All perspectives do not contain some truth, but lower or higher degrees of truth, because falsehood is not the opposite of truth. Falsehood is the lack of truth. And I will return to the discrepancy between falsehood and truth in a later video. At the turn of the new millennium, the integral theorist Ken Wilber revised the spiral dynamics theory and brought it into his own integral theory. One of the things he did was that he changed some of the colors of the original scale so they better fitted in with the color spectrum, from infrared through all the visible colors to onto ultraviolet, and lastly back to the undifferentiated clear light of consciousness. In this video, I will use both color schemes. First, I will tell the name of the original color, and afterwards I will tell Ken Wilber's revised color. In the instances where the original color and Ken Wilber's revised colors are the same, I will obviously only talk about one color. In other words, the spiral dynamic theory rests on the insight that when the unitive, undifferentiated light of consciousness shine into the world of duality, it gets fractalized into different colors or contexts. All contexts are therefore awarenesses or perspective within the unified strata of the light of consciousness. This means that there are no color that are better than any other color, but they are so very different. All the colors represent therefore different contexts or consciousness paradigms, and can be used in the explanation of the cosmic mother spontaneous creation. As stated before, when we talk about spiral dynamic theory, we find ourselves in one of the most sophisticated layer of the appearance. This is a place where the mind, as being the thinking version of the appearance, are running on all cylinders. The mind's mission is to be able to explain the whole world and make a theory about everything. From spiral dynamics' vertical interparadigmatic model, the mind can go even further and combine it with the horizontal personality typology as found in the Enneagram. Thereby, the mind can create a superstructure of theoretical explanatory power. This is all very good, and it's all a part of the appearance. It is the theories of the mind and even our entire personality type we disidentify from when we realize that appearance is not the same as essence. From the new identification with the subjective essence, the limitations of the mind becomes obvious, and the mind's objective closed systems and its not true and tried and tested paradigmatic assumptions becomes transcended and instead replaced by subjective essence tools such as intuition, direct experience, and consciousness calibration. I don't use the spiral dynamic theory more in my own life. There was a time in my life where it was useful in order to get an overview. This means that I won't be making any more videos about spiral dynamics theory or the Enneagram. There already exists plenty of good information out there. So if spiral dynamics theory has such limitations, why make a video about it? My intention with today's video is simply to share my own notes. And my notes is a combination of my understanding, which I've gotten through studying spiral dynamics thoroughly, and experience and interaction with consciousness, among others by direct experience. I also want to go further and integrate spiral dynamic theory's color context with other scales of consciousness, namely the Hawkins map of consciousness, Jeffrey Martin's Finder's location scale, and terms used from ecclesiology of the uppermost essence strata of religion, as well as applying some Buddhist terms and my own notes. If you want more information about these models, have a look below the video. My intention with this YouTube channel is not to run around in the appearance, but to realize that appearance is not the same as essence. Spiral dynamics theory is a tool of the appearance. So therefore, please take this video lightheartedly. Spiral dynamics theorists and the like could say that you can't just put spiral dynamics together with other scales of consciousness. That's true enough, but we'll do it anyway. Why not? This is more art than science. If you can use it, take it with you, or otherwise, leave it be. Furthermore, remember to hold the context. When I, for instance, use the ecclesiological word hell about the color purple/magenta color, then it's seen from the context of a citizen in a modern society in the West. If you find yourself in the context of being an uncontacted tribe in the deep rainforest of Papua New Guinea, then it's appropriate to have one's center of consciousness gravity in the color of purple/magenta. And one last observation before we get started. Life on Earth can be seen as one big arena of extreme diversification of consciousness context, meaning the whole scale is represented here on Earth. One of life's greatest challenges is to be able to live as a connected individual in a purgatorial world of extreme consciousness diversification. That's not easy. But what it gives is the best karmic opportunities for development and growth than if we lived in a completely homogeneous consciousness world. In section 2 of today's video, I want to take the first 5 colors relatively quickly by finding into the essence of each and every one of them. In section 3 of today's video, mainly which goes from the color green up until the color coral/indigo, I want to spend a little bit more time with each color, at the same time as we look also on what can be termed the shadow side of each color, or you can also say where you can go wrong in each color. With that being said, let's get into it. Section 2, Beige/Infrared to Orange, Survival on Earth. Color 1, Beige/Infrared, Location 0, Hawkins scale 5 to 49, Hell, Deep Sleep, the Archaic Paradigm. The essence of the Archaic Paradigm is survival in the natural world. The Archaic Paradigm is the paradigm that has existed for the longest period of time. We see that the earliest Homo sapiens started development as a separate species approximately 200,000 years ago. For a long time, these archaic human beings lived between other species of the Homo species and amongst a giant fauna that does not exist any longer. The archaic human being was not at the top of the food pyramid and therefore had to appropriate itself into the natural survival hierarchy of nature. The archaic human being only had its instinct to orient oneself in the world. For instance, the instinct for survival, the instinct for recreation, and the instinct to find nourishment. By the discovery of fire, the archaic human being had got new possibilities for nutrition, as well as a good source, as well as a way of scaring away the megafauna. The archaic human being is grounded or connected to the earth and understands nature's law of survival. How many of us listening to this would be able to only survive on the premises of nature if we were plucked out of civilization? As society evolved from the archaic and into the tribal, means that if you today find yourself in the archaic development line, you can't really interact within society's norms and rules. The archaic human falls out of society and exists, for instance, as a homeless in a sedated archaic survival state. You know that you're in the presence of an archaic human being when everything is about physical survival, unconditioned by how trivial the problem might seem. Some people with intense mental illness also fall within this category. I really like Ken Wilber's color-coded word for this, infrared, because infrared is outside of the human's eyes' ability to see. And this corresponds with the little baby who is at the archaic stage in its first year of life. The little baby has not developed a separate eye yet, and is therefore in unconscious symbiosis connected to the mother in the world of the instinctive domain. Color 2, purple/magenta. Location 0, Hawkins scale 50 to 99, Hell, Deep Sleep, the tribal paradigm. The essence of the tribal paradigm is survival as a part of the tribe. The archaic human developed into the tribal human when it figured out how to share the workload. In the tribe now, there were some that were hunters and some that were gatherers. Working together within the organic trust bonds of the tribe, increased the yield and resources and energy that was available. There were now resources available to more specialized roles within the tribe, for instance, as the shaman. And the shaman's role was to observe nature and connect to it in a deeper way than possible before. It is this purple/magenta paradigm that Terence McKenna dreamt of as being the original Garden of Eden from his green postmodern neo-shamanist paradigm. But no, the true paradise is in turquoise, in the holistic paradigm. Forwards, not back in consciousness. We see the purple/magenta paradigm today in the structure of the immediate family. We see it in the obsessive of the occult, the magical, voodoo, magical thinking, and shamanism. Stay away from all these things. Forward, not back in consciousness. There still exists some tribes today which can be seen as being centered in this tribal paradigm. One example of this could be the Maasai tribe that lives in Kenya. The child's individual development reaches this state when it's between 18 months and 3 years of age, where it's really starting to orient itself in the family as the modern tribe with a dawning eye. 3. Red. Location 0. Hawkins 99 to 149. Hell. Deep sleep. The primitive paradigm. The essence of the primitive paradigm is now the appearance differentiation from the tribe and its own egoic goal about survival by becoming the most powerful person. The primitive human developed out of the organic tribal society at the same time as the hunter-gatherer society evolved into the earliest agricultural society for approximately 12,000 years ago, when production of food was now in its seasonal it was there in seasonal and becomes attached to seasons and became and there was stability. It started to gather surplus of food. The question now was, how should this surplus of food be distributed? The primitive human represents the first developmental stage where the appearance need is put over the needs of the tribe. The primitive human detaches itself from the organic social structure of the tribe and takes, by the discovery of its own innate egocentric power, what it needs without thinking about the consequences. Thereby, there was a hierarchy created in the primitive society where the chief or the emperor, or whatever you want to call him, had the power to decide over the distribution of food, women, and how the society was structured beneath him. The power shifted during power struggles when there was a challenger for the emperor position, and the one who was strongest became the new alpha. The primitive human also exists today, but because society overall has moved on from the primitive stage, men and women who find themselves the center of gravity in the primitive human paradigm is thus outside of integrated polite society. The primitive human therefore often gets his job and money through criminality, and he's being put into prison by the traditional human, which we'll see in the next color. We find the primitive human amongst biker gangs, in the mafia, and also by observing great empires, aggressive expansion, and meddling in other countries' political processes. The primitive paradigm still has a lot of power and influence in this world. The child's individual development reaches the primitive paradigm from approximately 3 to 6 years of age, the child develops his own self-determination and personal boundaries on conditions from its exhausted parents. Color 4. Blue/amber. Location 0. Hawkins 150 to 189. Purgatory. Deep sleep. The traditional paradigm. The essence of the traditional paradigm is when the appearance realizes the necessity of law and order and rules and collective boundaries to secure the survival of the population against the primitive paradigm's chaos and aggressive expansion. The traditional human developed from the primitive human around the time of the Middle Ages, when the primitive human's egocentric power and war struggles and empire expansion created destruction around the world. The traditional paradigm introduces law and order to tame the primitive human's lust impulses. And it does it by creating the kingdom and later the modern state. The traditional human is stable and wants to protect its territory. The national state is a traditional construction who demarcates lines or boundaries indicating what is inside of the country and what is outside of the country. When humanity reaches the traditional developmental stage, or when a human being does, he or she is now a complete member of society. The traditional human has occupations such as policeman, soldier, priest, and farmer. They keep the wheels of society turning with their stability and hard work. And the child reaches the traditional paradigm around the time of starting school, where it has to learn to sit still, be orderly, and know the ABC. 5. Orange. Location 0. Hawkins 190 to 224. The world of appearance. Light sleep. The modern paradigm. The essence of the modern paradigm is now using the reason of the mind to organize society in such a way that it creates economic surplus and material benefits for the entire population. The modern paradigm came from the Age of Enlightenment in the late 1700s and was rebelling against the heavy traditional hierarchies and rules of the traditional paradigm. The modern human puts the rationality of the mind instead of blindly following the rules of the law. The individual now is free from traditional structures and acts on a rational market where it buys and sells products. The modern person knows how to make money, a lot of money, and how to climb up the economic hierarchies. It's the CEO instead of the king. By the modern human, the modern objective science was also born, and old religion loses more and more its influence. Instead, materialist atheism is on the rise. Universal principles such as human rights, which is not bounded by the boundaries of the state, is now accepted as being valid. The modern human is seen at the universities, in the financial sectors, as entrepreneurs, and in liberal political circles. Not everyone reaches the modern paradigm. If you do it, it tends to start around the time that you're in high school, but can start much later also, where human beings now can systematize its thinking and start to be critical to what information it takes in. Section 3. Green to Coral/Indigo. Becoming someone so you can become no one. Color 6. Location 0. Hawkins, 225 to 309. The Human World. Light sleep slash mini awakening. The postmodern paradigm. The essence of the postmodern paradigm is to make way for higher levels of consciousness by turning towards the 5 earlier paradigms and start to criticize them and deconstruct them. The postmodern human turns towards the modern paradigm's focus on economic growth and resource accumulation. And the postmodern human starts to criticize modernity for being blind to the natural, social, and relational consequences by following profit above all. Furthermore, the postmodern human criticizes the traditional paradigm for being too stiff and too much about rules and norms. Postmodernism cannot see essence yet, and therefore wants to break down all traditional and modern boundaries. The postmodern paradigm has existed as a factor in society in the Western world since the 1960s and is also called the sensitive human. The postmodern paradigm puts values such as equality, ecological balance, creativity, and free sex up on a pedestal. With the postmodern human, the term spiritual but not religious starts to make sense. The postmodern human starts the search after something which is greater than itself, by, for instance, introducing yoga, meditation, psychedelic substances, music, and travel. And now we will turn for the first time, to the shadow side of the particular color, and in this instance it's the shadow side of postmodernism. Because there is a paradox in the heart of postmodernism. The postmodernist appearance's greatest wish is to appear as tolerant as humanly possible. To be tolerant when meeting everything and everyone. And then see themselves as being in opposition to the 5 previous colors which was deemed not tolerant. But where postmodernism goes wrong is when postmodernists are not able to be tolerant towards people that themselves are intolerant. In other words, in an attempt to be as inclusive and tolerant as possible, it still creates a us and them paradox. Us, the good, tolerant people, and them, the evil, intolerant people. Therefore, postmodernism is something in and of itself, but at the same time it's connected to the previous 5 colors in what can be called a tier of the 6 first colors. When Western societies are becoming more and more postmodern, we also see the shadow side of postmodernism in a more clear light. The shadow side of postmodernism is cancel culture, new censorship, wokeism, too much focus on activism, and postmodern politics and identity culture. Postmodernism can, in and of itself, not escape the culture war with the previous 5 paradigms. The postmodern deconstruction is only a middle station in the newly construction, which awaits in the next color. With a beginning of many awakenings and a dawning understanding that maybe appearance is not the same as essence, postmodernism can solve its foundational tolerant-intolerant dichotomy and get ready to take the step into the next tier, into higher consciousness paradigms. Color 7, yellow/teal, location 1, Hawkins 310 to 499, higher astral world, mini awakenings and self-actualization. And this 7th color has 2 subcategories. The first one is the accepting emotional humanist paradigm, and the second one is the rational archetypal paradigm. The essence of the accepting emotionally humanist paradigm is to accept the world and oneself as it is, instead of how you want it to be. One fine morning, you wake up and you realize that you're not in postmodernism any longer. You know that something has shifted, but it's hard to say exactly what. New capabilities starts to come in that you can train, and there's new land to be explored, and you're very motivated and willing to get started. In the humanist paradigm, you can now more and more be honest towards yourself, until you reach the point where you can be radical honest towards oneself. You're now ready to hear how other people actually see you and your appearance, because you're no longer so afraid of the appearance coming into a bad light. With accept now, you can really start repairing the heart and putting the past behind you. Now the transformation takes shape. There's a new and more expansive paradigm coming. It's the rational archetypal paradigm. After having accepted oneself in the world, you can now go venture into the rational paradigm. The essence of the rational archetypal paradigm is to go on a hero's journey, do one's shadow work, and return home to the inner kingdom as the sovereign that has the nobility to complete the personality and, in a paradoxical way, let it go. With the entrance to the archetypal paradigm, you now understand models such as spiral dynamic theories and the Enneagram, because you can see it within yourself. In the rational paradigm, you go on a hero's journey and fight the dragon or whatever animal that comes your way, in order to come home to the inner kingdom as the sovereign center. As center in the inner kingdom, you can now subtract all forms down to their archetypal existence core. We are now in the utmost sophisticated layer of the appearance, only visited by great geniuses within the fields of art, theology, and science. Lastly, you realize that behind all forms there is universal energy. To one's big surprise, you realize that one's entire personality, which you have spent so much time healing, balancing, and completing, also was just another form in the universe. It was a part of the appearance. You are therefore much more than the appearance and the personality, and have to start the process of letting it go, because appearance is not the same as essence. The shadow side of yellow/teal. There are many places you can get stuck in the humanist and the archetypal paradigms. The most important thing here is to understand that we are still in the appearance, and that has its obvious limitations. In the appearance, you wish, therefore, to create a theory of everything, as seen with the spiral dynamics theory and the Enneagram, because the rationality of the mind as the mental part of the appearance is still the primary way of understanding the world. In other words, there's still this filter between I and the world. There's still a gap between the appearance and the essence. Yet, the mind is now very open and receptive towards all information of the world. And one way to distinguish between the lower levels and the true archetypal rationality is that at the lower levels, the mind will want to proselytize and push its belief systems on you. But once you have your consciousness center here in the rational archetypal paradigm, you don't push anything on anyone anymore. Yet you still can't see essence. Therefore, you can't really discriminate against the information, and a lot of misinformation can enter the system and poison the well, so to speak. The mind is also stuck in the content. It's looking in the content for the context, but you have to step out of the content into the context, because that's a part of the essential aspect of life. You're also still stuck in linearity, and you put too much emphasis and authority to the individual as a free agent in the world. Free will and all that. Lastly, you can get stuck in doing shadow work. And you can keep repeating and talking about your childhood trauma ad nauseum. Remember that the shadow work is only a stepping stone to disidentifying from the personality. You are not your childhood trauma and all that. It's not the end station for personal development. And at the very last, be careful with pride over the realization that you might be a little bit ahead of the curve. Color 8, turquoise, location 2, Hawkins 500 to 539, Paradise World, Soul and Universal Energy, the Holistic Paradigm. The essence of the Holistic Paradigm is to identify with essence instead of the appearance, and now rest in the individual being as a whole soul in a world of universal energy. In order to get to the holistic paradigm, you have to let go of the core identification with your appearance, which, as said before, consists of thoughts, feelings, lower vital impulses, and even the entire personality. Instead, you are now identified with your individual witness perspective, resting in individual being. I really like this picture here to illustrate the holistic paradigm because it shows a lady who has her feet out of the window of a very nice car, and she's taking it easy. She has gone on holiday for the rest of her life. Who would have thought that it would be this difficult to take it easy? When going from the appearance and into the essence, you have now balanced your inner polarities, such as light, shadow, man, woman, etc. And now you move your identification from being a part of the whole to being wholeness in itself. When doing this, you at the same time see the world of universal energy, which was behind the archetypes. The life force energy comes back, and you now have full awareness and capability about its processes through the energy body. You have mastered it. The heart opens completely and stays open. And I'll have a video on the heart at a later time. And a constant stream of fundamental well-being is now always available. The holistic paradigm feels good. You now observe from the heart that love is what every true seeker is looking for. You feel joy over realizing the paradoxal in the statement, we are what we're looking for. But the scale is constructed in such a way that you have to go to the holistic paradigm to realize it. When you get deeper into the holistic paradigm, the non-local subliminal starts, and you can now, in parentheses, leave the body and go on journeys in higher astral and celestial worlds. Just after that, the third eye opens completely, and you can now see other people's subjective experience. You can now see the universal life energy with a short shift in the inner focus. Life, thereby, becomes one long, open-eyed meditation. When you let go of your identification with the mind as being the primary epistemological instrument, then intuition takes over, and you realize that you have always been guided. Just like the meeting I had with Air Beauty a couple of weeks ago. When we had the meeting, it only took a couple of minutes after our two individual energy systems had melted together and formed something completely new to realize that there really was no one that does anything. The only thing that was left was sitting together on a park bench in Copenhagen and witness the mother's spontaneous creation. And maybe make a little video. When you in the holistic paradigm are not identified with any strong personalities of the appearance, then that's the same as entering human adulthood. You see that people are wounded and therefore wound other people because they're not whole and cannot feel the ever-presentness of love. At the same time, you understand that it's not my assignment in life to save anybody. That in love there really are no problems. The world is benign and everything is and all is well. The holistic paradigm is the true Garden of Eden, which Terence McKenna wrongly assumed should be found in the purple/magenta paradigm, the tribal paradigm. The shadow side of turquoise. The paradox that leads us into the shadow side of the holistic paradigm is, as mentioned earlier, that in love there are no problem. Yet, problem can arise in the energetic love paradigm. Let's have a look at it. 1. Naivety. Entering the holistic paradigm is such a great shift and feels so good and so natural that you can mistakenly believe that the whole world has entered it with you. You therefore have a tendency to overvalue other people's capability because you think they see the world the same way and they have gained the same insights. The spiritual heart, therefore, what is missing is being balanced by training the third eye into seeing directly different levels of consciousness exist, the whole scale of consciousness exists in this world. And thereafter it follows that you need to protect your fundamental well-being energy, heart energy, against the collective negativity of mankind. 2. Loneliness. In a paradoxical way, you can feel lonely in the holistic paradigm because there aren't that many people that understand how you see the world. Thereby, you look after a global tribe of like-minded individuals, and that could be hard to find. This quotation from the German mystic Hermann Hesse, I think, really encapsulates this loneliness very good. And he says, quote, "We must become so alone, so utterly alone, that we withdraw into our innermost self. It is a way of bitter suffering. But then our solitude is overcome. We are no longer alone, for we find that our innermost self is the spirit, the indivisible. And suddenly we find ourselves in the midst of the world, yet undisturbed by its multiplicity. From our innermost soul, we know ourselves to be one with all being." End quote. 3. Overexertion and passivity. Overexertion and passivity can arise in the holistic paradigm as a paradoxical effect of the fundamental well-being, of feeling well. Because you yourself feel so well, you want to help other people also feel well. And in this process, you can be willing to put yourself completely to the side. And afterwards, you have to work on getting yourself back together again. Because in the next paradigm, in the next color, you get more sophisticated and direct ways of sucking other people's, in quotation, other people's karma directly into the spiritual heart and destroy it. Then there's no more need for overexertion. So the way out of the holistic paradigm is therefore to finish and finish and complete one's individual energy system in such a way that it can link up with unity consciousness that starts above the crown when you enter the next field of unconditional love. 9. Color 9. Coral/Indigo. Location 3 and 4. Hawkins 540 to 599. Lower heavens to true heavens. Awakening, unity consciousness, and illumination. And this color has two subcategories. The first one is the unconditional love paradigm, and the second one is the transcendent love paradigm. The essence of the unconditional love paradigm is to step into unity consciousness and thereby wake up as a divine child and realize that the universe is one big playground. When going from the holistic paradigm to the unconditional love paradigm, the static self awakens over the top of the crown and you are now free. You have now left the still earthbound paradise turquoise level and can take all perspective with the newly acquired and awakened transcendental witness perspective. The unconditional love paradigm is the end station for development within religion. You have now reached saint level, on the earth but not of the earth, and all that. What Sri Aurobindo calls the psychic beings awakens in the innermost heart chamber and starts to transform all the lower impulses, vital impulses, into pure love energy. Everything happens by synchronicity. You have, so to speak, been relegated to the back seat of the car. The only thing left is to enjoy the ride. In the unconditional love paradigm, you can still function in the world. The essence of the transcendent love paradigm is to allow the final collapse of the appearance, say goodbye to the last incarnation, and let the oversoul illuminate all parts of oneself. Even though you are relegated to the backside of the car in the unconditional love stage, it can still happen that you are karmically programmed to progress further. In the transcendent love paradigm, there is no car left. Spiritual work is then, in its essence, the process of withdrawing energy from one's appearance and giving it to the essence. If you continue down that road, the appearance will sooner or later be emptied out, and after that it will collapse by itself. From the appearance collapse, the soul takes over, and from there it becomes possible to see a greater world than you ever could have imagined. The Father's cosmic consciousness and the Mother's light, power, wisdom, and Ananda, and all that. If you can remain in the transcendental love paradigm, you will sooner or later find yourself relaxing there. An experience of Satori will start to come. Ecstasy becomes the foundation of one's energy level, and you can now dance around and around for all eternity, just like the Sufis. The light body becomes activated as the transfiguration reaches its maximum, and the cities that came in the unconditional love paradigm is now magnified. Therefore, it's a good idea not to use them anymore. It is impossible to function in the world in the transcendent love paradigm, because you have transcended the world. Let us now, in the last here, look at the shadow side of Choral-Indigo and answer the question of why it can be so difficult to stay there. The shadow side of Choral/Indigo. 1. Overwhelm. It's very hard not to get overwhelmed when you enter unity consciousness. There are simply too many things happening at the same time. Too much power, too much space, too much novelty, and you get overwhelmed. It is simply too much. If you cannot stay in the transcendental love paradigm, you can come back to the holistic paradigm by taking on a new incarnation and turning down the volume of the energy. 2. The last stand of the appearance. Especially when you get deep into the coral/indigo color, the last remnants of the appearance will try to cling on to how everything was, because it fears its own annihilation. It fears its own non-existence. The higher you go up, the deeper you also go down. To get through the last vestiges of the appearance, you therefore have to go down to its core, namely the I, the individual I. The appearance as a defense sends powerful feelings of terror and death anxiety from its core to stop the process and reinstate its illusory dominance as the center of the universe. 3. God shock. The collapse of the appearance and the realization of the transcendent self is a shock to the system that can take a long time to get over. You grieve the person you thought you were, and meanwhile all paradigms, thought systems, and belief systems are blown apart, When the soul realizes that it's not the center of the universe, you let go of all attachments you had for everything and is confronted by the realization that, my God, I knew absolutely nothing before. Section 4. Where are we going? Where exactly are we going? Where are we going as an individual, and where are we going as a species? I don't know. These are some of the questions I will try to tackle when we go forward on this YouTube channel. I know that in spiral dynamic theory there are 3 additional colors after the transcendent love paradigm. I have no experience with them, so now we venture into the area of speculation. This is something that I've heard about. 1. Teal/violet. The non-dual paradigm has something to do with the full emergence of the soul and being in the great transcendental peace. You're no longer identified with the body, and you can leave it by taking what is called Maha Samadhi. 2. Aubergine/ultraviolet. In the spirit paradigm has something to do with the last dissolution of the soul into spirit. And I like that Ken Wilber calls it ultraviolet, because just like the first color, infrared, both colors are outside the visible color spectrum. So infrared and ultraviolet builds a bridge through the whole spiral, as the beginning and the end, the alpha omega of the spectrum of light. Yet there's still 3: clear light, the all that is. From aubergine/ultraviolet, you can go through the ultimate void, the end station, the end point for all negation, and then journey on through the last door into the all that is. Now you leave the fractalized color spectrum and you go back to the undifferentiated light of consciousness. Gloria in excelsis Deo. It's important to remember that when we talk about vertical scales of consciousness, that we are not a paradigm. We are more like a spectrum in the overall consciousness. From there we start our spiritual work, and we work both on our lowest energy spectrum, which we call shadow work, in order to lift the floor of our consciousness up. Thereby we will not all the time be pulled down into the lowest part of our energy fields. We process them out. And watch my video, This is How You Deal with Your Partner's Time Out in the Relationship, for more about the lower parts of our energy fields. So the lowest part of our energy spectrum is us when we have a bad day. At the same time, we work on lifting the highest part of our spectrum of our energy field up. We do that when we finish our personality and move our core identification from the appearance and into the essence. The highest parts of our consciousness spectrum is us on a very good day, and everything in between. We are all children of the divine, and the universe is our playground. Thank you for today.